Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for coming. We're super excited to have you, and welcome to this year's Summer Speaker Series, hosted by Sony Pictures Animation and then also Asians in Animation. So I'm Michelle, I'm the Communications Chair at Asians in Animation, and I'm going to be moderating today's panel. So just as some background for maybe anyone who this is their first panel, Sony Animation started this speaker series in 2021 as a way to provide partner orgs like Asians in Animation with direct access to executives and creatives from SPA. And they're going to be able to share insight and give you guys an exclusive look sort of at the various departments within the studio. And we're super excited to partner with them for a series of weekly panels. And these are going to be continuing to the end of August. So if you guys are interested, please be sure to tune into some of the upcoming panels. We have a conversation on the animation pipeline and also creative development coming up. So all of you guys are here today for our panel. It's going to be visual development, careers, craft, and portfolio tips. And this is basically going to be like an in-depth talk with art leadership and VisDev artists, and they're going to be able to discuss their careers, the craft of design and paint roles, and then what they look for in like VisDev and character design portfolios. So if you guys are looking to enter the animation industry in the VisDev side, you are absolutely in the right place. So I do want to introduce our panelists really quick before they get to, like talk about themselves and answer questions. So we have the amazing Jang Lee, and he's a production designer. So he has been in the industry for over 2 decades, working as an art director, a map painter, a VisDev artist. And he's worked for studios like Netflix, Walt Disney Features, Sony Picture Imageworks, and Spire Animation Studios. And right now, Jang is currently a production designer at Sony Pictures. And he's also a member of the Visual Effects Society and also at SIFA. And then our other amazing panelist is Jay Thakur. And Jay is a VisDev artist. And so he has worked on Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, but prior to joining Sony Pictures, Jay served as a production designer at the Danish consulting industry Design It, and then also as an illustrator for Penguin. So Jay has worked as an illustrator on graphic novels, comic books, and also installations for museums. So not sure if there's any other alumni of Art Center College, but Jay is an alumni of Art Center College of Design, and he studied entertainment design and screenwriting. So we're super grateful for you guys giving your time to us, and we're really, really excited to get to hear from you guys about everything. And without further ado, I would love to get us started with a question. And what I was curious about was, so for both of you, how did you get into your current role? So what were you thinking about when you first started pursuing artistic careers?
Um,
Jay, go first.
I mean, I got into this role because I was always, fond of storytelling and films and comic books. And I started off as an industrial designer, but I realized that, oh, my love for characters and um, engaging stories was so much stronger that I needed to get into film. And so I applied. I left my job at Design It in Denmark, and I applied to Art Center in around 2014, 2015. And that's where I did my entertainment design program. And after that course was done, I got recruited at Sony for the Spider-Verse role. And I mean, it was such an amazing opportunity. And I got to learn so much. That's how my journey into film actually started. And that's how I'm continuing to work as a VisDev artist at Sony. And that's how I am here now. Yeah.
Great. For me, it has been a long journey. As a youngster growing up in South Korea, I always kind of admired Walt Disney, the classic animation. So that was my kind of almost like a North Star. Someday I can work on some projects from Disney. Then as a high school kid and moving to USA, kind of follow the footsteps of most Asian, kids. They already will study pre-medicine and engineering. So I was going through that system quite a bit in a few years. Then I finally decided to switch over to art, and then I went to art center, and then that's how I started my career in art. And it's been over 20 years or so, but I think I really enjoy working as an artist. And since like the first day I started, since I mean even today, I never kind of regret about my choices. I think it's the right choice for me, and I hope everybody can kind of follow their dreams and then just work it hard and to get to the finish line. And one thing I definitely want to stress is that it's a long career. A lot of people really anxious about trying to achieve something in their 20s and 30s, but I became a production designer at age 50 something, so it's still going. So I think you should think more in terms of long term. So don't get ever frustrated if something doesn't happen right away.
Honestly, that is such good advice about like not trying to rush and feel like I need to accomplish everything in my 20s. It is really hard. Um, and it's so nice to think like we have our whole lives to like bloom and grow our careers, and who knows, what the paths in our careers will take us. But I did want to ask, like, from both your backgrounds and your sort of like early stages in your career, did you always feel supported in your decision to pursue an artistic path, or was that not the case?
For me, it wasn't because it's kind of like a stereotype that the most Asian kids, they usually study medicine or engineering, and that was one of my calling card. And I studied hard at school and tried to get into those programs. And I was pre-medicine at UC Irvine for almost 4 years. But at the end of the beginning of the fourth year, I couldn't take it, so I switched it over. So it wasn't easy transition, but I think when I first got a job at Disney, I mean, my first job wasn't like anything big, very small, but eventually I got a job at Disney, and that's when my mom kind of recognized that she knows that big name, right? So she was kind of, oh yeah, that actually you're doing something. So so that's how it happened, but it was tough. It wasn't easy at all.
Yeah, for me, I think my parents were a little more supportive than most Indian parents. But there was always, that building the trust and making sure you show them where this can lead to. I mean, they did want me to do engineering, but somehow I like convinced them I can go into product design, which is close to engineering, and then from there jump into film. And then that was the kind of yeah, trust building exercise that I had to do. But I feel they were quite supportive in allowing me to do this. Yeah.
I think it's always nice to hear that like at the end they did understand the merit, and like it's a tough industry. It's a huge accomplishment to do anything related to art and animation. But from also like thinking about like how you became the artist and the creative you are today, if you think back to maybe your childhood, what are some of the strongest artistic influences that you had growing up? And then maybe what are your artistic influences now?
I think
Yeah. Go ahead, John.
go ahead, Jay.
So yeah, the first film that I ever saw was Jurassic Park, and that was like what started everything for me. I became obsessed with like sketching dinosaurs. I see Jang has a few dinosaurs behind him. But that's what started. Like we had a few VHS cassettes at home. There was Jurassic Park, Jungle Book, Sound of Music. So these were like the ones I would keep watching. And then from there, my dad had like a collection of Asterix and Obelix comics. These were these French comics. There were some Mad comics. So those were the ones that started my journey into sketching and characters and environments and all that. And those those have all even with me right now. And right now, I feel I try to find like inspiration in nature more. What nature is telling me, what animals teach us. And also every step when I conquer a fear, that teaches me a lot. So I try to like engage myself into things I'm not comfortable with, and things that are unknown. Um, those are also are big influences in my artistic journey.
Great. For me, was when I was very young, growing up in South Korea, I watched Pinocchio by Walt Disney, one of the classic. I mean, even still today, I think that is probably the one of the greatest movie ever made. That really did it for me. I didn't want to get into, I don't know what it was, but I did something about moving pictures that was really, as a youngster, very impressive to me. And now, as an artist, a professional artist, I always look back at the movies made in 60s and 70s when they purely rely on the a technique, the film language. They didn't use visual effects. You know, a lot of classic movies like The Taxi Driver, for example, they use natural lighting and setup to make it work. And also, I really love and respect Akira Kurosawa, black and white. He doesn't really use that much color. He just go for the good lighting and composition to tell a story without using too many effects. To me, those are the really inspiring. So I'm trying to bring kind of same thing to our current project. Even though we're doing computer generated images, we're trying to make it more natural and more practical in a way. So I think yeah, those are the things that really influenced me from the beginning and also to, even to nowadays.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. I think I especially like your last comment about like even though the medium changes, we're working with CGI a lot now. The inspiration and the heart that we take of like we watched Pinocchio, we watched Jurassic Park as a kid. We saw these hand-drawn movies from the 60s and 70s and the practical effects. Like that magic stays with us. And that's what, you guys are trying to emulate in these like modern movies coming out now. I also wanted to say for the audience, some of you guys have already started doing this, but please feel free to ask any questions you guys want. You can go ahead and drop them in the Q&A function. Like we're super excited and happy to answer any of your questions. But back to you guys. So thinking about your sort of career journey and then like maybe where you are right now and then what your day-to-day looks like, what part of the creative process is the most fun for you guys in your job? And then what is the most challenging? And maybe they're different, maybe they're the same.
Okay, I'll go first. Because my role is a production designer, so the one of the key requirements for production designers is to do a world building, so which is can be very technical. So you have to kind of decide which world building you want to do, technique wise, like hard world building or soft world building, or what type of visual narrative you want to take. So there's a lot of like technical things you need to figure out in the beginning, and also you have to understand director's vision. It's not your personal project, it's someone else's vision, and you're trying to bring it to the audience. And then on top of that, it's just a lot of daily meetings and trying to move the production. So because eventually we have to finish the project, so that's a daily task. And on top of that, you also have to do your own, like produce your own visual development art assets. So it's a lot of things to do. So it's sometimes kind of stressful, but at the same time, it's very rewarding because you're building something very unique, especially Spa. They always look for something unique and different than other studios. So yeah, pretty much that's my daily like a task and what I do for every day.
Yeah. Yeah, like how Jang said, the understanding the vision of the director is and translating that is a hard task. So getting an accurate, tangible expression of a feeling, that I would say is like the hard part of the creative process. And but as you do more of it, it gets easier and easier. But that it is quite a challenging aspect. And but the fun part I would say is like researching and executing the painting. those are quite fun for me at least, because while researching, you get to learn so much more, so many new things and things you didn't know about, and applying that into the painting, that's like a freeing process. It's like almost a meditative process. So that would be the fun part of for it for me. Yeah.
I know totally that feeling of like getting in the zone with something you're making is completely unmatched. But it is tough. It is tough to like prepare yourself and get the research ready and just get ready to go and paint. Um, I think something I'm also curious about is thinking about our audience and thinking about like a lot of our audience is early career, or maybe they didn't have a traditional upbringing into the animation industry, like art school, first job at a studio, or an internship. Um, what's your top advice or resources for anyone who's interested in being an artist? Maybe courses or art books you really love, or maybe just even things they should focus on and study. What would you recommend?
Um,
Go ahead, Jay.
um, as I guess as an artist, the main thing is to observe and listen to everything that's happening outside you and inside you. So understand what your senses are telling you and how you're reacting to those senses. So that is, I think, a key aspect if you want to be an artist and grow in that. Other than that, you have to, build muscle memory and procedural memory. So you have to practice a lot, practice the things that you like to do. Look at inspiration, not only the contemporary inspiration, but also like, old stuff and classical artists, like Jang was saying, Kurosawa, or like stuff from other cultures that you might not have heard of. Um, books like perspective books, like Scott Robertson's uh, perspective drawing books, and also there are these other books which are not related to art but about the creative process, like Rick Rubin's Creative Act. These are quite helpful to get a wholesome view and evolve yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with what Jay said. The few things I can add is that this is a talent-driven industry, so it doesn't matter who you are or what school you went, because a lot of people can draw into big name schools or big programs, thinking if you go there, somehow you become a professional artist. But that's not the true at all. It's all about you. So if you're a good artist, doesn't matter where you are, someone will find you and hire you to do a project. So I would just say, just keep practice and really trying to research a lot about how studio does the build the program or movies or any type of the production pipeline to get used to what actual studio does versus some of the advice or examples are floating around other areas. But just really research a lot about the studios and their pipeline and listen to a professional artist who've been done few movies before. That's more valuable. So a lot of people just assume if they went to good school or watched enough movies that somehow they will guarantee something for them to kind of land the first job. But that's not the case. That usually art directors and production designers, they look for a talent, somebody who can really come to the production and help the movie project. So yeah, just a lot of practice and also research what actually going on in the studio. That will really help them.
Honestly, I love knowing that, like people can take these non-traditional routes into the industry. You can be any age, you can be at any stage, I guess, of like your schooling career, right? Maybe you didn't go to college at all. Maybe you switched your major halfway through, and it's up to you and, honing your portfolio to build that bridge into the industry. But since I did bring up portfolios, and because it is so important to showcase your talent and your unique style, what advice would you give to someone to make their portfolio stand out?
I think not all production designers are the same, but for me, I don't design something I'm comfortable with or familiar. So other words, I don't really do things that I know. It's more like understanding director's vision and trying to come up with a new visual language for the particular project. So the casting is very important to me. So I always look for artists who can actually help the project and the production. So it is very important to have your very strong foundation, like perspective, color theory, and overall the strong foundation. Figure drawings are always important. Unless you want to just work on very particular style, like let's say SpongeBob, that's the only thing you have in a portfolio, then I won't be able to like cast you. But if you have a really broad spectrum of very solid art skills, then they will be more attractive for me to kind of hire someone who can actually handle different types of tasks. So always trying to build up your fundamental skill sets. That's more important than trying to be more stylized too much, because unless you want to pursue that one particular style, I would say just build a really strong foundation so you can really tackle any task.
Yeah, I agree. Showing you have a good foundation is quite key. But another way is to stand out is because to show your point of view, basically, because that is what makes you unique. That is what is going to help you stand out. And once you like trust your point of view or have developed that, then the style would is automatically come out. It'll be the byproduct of you being confident with your point of view. And that is what will make you stand out and be unique. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so, I guess, like important to realize like you need to show your broad range of skill sets because you're going to be working in a broad range of different skills. And I mean, when it comes to drawing though, making a portfolio can be tough. It can be a bit draining, you know, constantly working on these pieces. It's maybe not the most freeing or maybe even like creatively inspired stuff. Beyond your day-to-day artwork that you do for work, what are some other things you do to keep yourself feeling creative and inspired in your daily life?
Um, I I play a lot of sports. That is, I think for me at least, it's quite key because your body mind is like one singular tool, and it has to be a complete exercised completely, not just not just consuming through like inspiration through your mind, but also moving about, doing new things, exploring new things. Um, Playing some music, getting inspiration from your different aspects of yourself. That is, I think, very important for me. And I'm even when I was in college, I made sure that every week I would like, play some sport or do some activity, even if I had like tons of homework to do. Because you don't realize, but it builds up and it helps you um, achieve whatever you want to achieve at a much faster rate. Yeah.
For me, I always love watching movies. So even when I was in college, I usually try to look for the movies are not well known, like even like 30s or 40s black and white movies, like a Charlie Chaplin old one. I think City of Light is one of them. So really trying to watch as much movie as possible. So if you look at what's happening now, because usually the Hollywood was like the actor driven, star driven industry, but now it's switched over to IP driven. So everything, big studios are making a bunch of different IPs. But when you look at those movies, and a lot of them are kind of borrowed from old movies, the techniques and color schemes and everything. So I think it is important to watch the movies that are made way before, because I teach at USC, and a lot of students, my students are, their film history kind of ends in 1990s. So I'm keep encouraging them to go beyond that, like 1960s, 50s, and 40s and 30s. Also, not just US or European movies, but Asia and Africa. There are so many other movies out there. Yeah, just keep looking those films, and that will really inspire to do something more creative.
Nice. That's amazing advice. Yeah, broadening your horizon about like the media you intake always helps sort of like the stuff that you end up wanting to make after. Thinking about like other things we can chat about and things that would be definitely relevant to people who are still early in the industry. Something that was asked to us was like, have you guys ever experienced art burnout with the immense amount of artwork you guys are producing all the time and the high expectations? How do you guys personally deal with burnout?
Do you want to go first, Jay?
Yeah. Like I said, for me, it's to do with sports. Sports is like a way to um, be free of the burnout. It just it's like I said, when I'm painting, I get into the zone, a flow kind of state. It's the same thing that happens when I play sports. So that just, eases all the burden on the mind. It empties, the thoughts, the recycled thoughts, and that way it's a very fast way to get out of that mindset and get inspired again.
For me, it's the one thing that really kind of makes me hard about this job is that everything is so subjective, because somebody likes blue and someone doesn't like it. And especially like if a director and producer have a very strong opinion about the color or design, that's something you worked on like 20 hours, a few weeks. Now you have to let it go. So that's really a tough one. So I kind of learned to kind of let it go. You don't really have a sense of ownership. So if you start have a ownership, then you think this is my design or my thing, then it will really burn you out and it really stress you out, and you won't be able to continue. So I would say just let things go, and just do your best. But at the end of the day, it's not yours. So that's how I manage my stress and burnout. So because at the end of the day, I would say, hey, I did my task, I did my best, and I just let it go and start a new day tomorrow.
Yeah, that like having a sense of detached attachment, which is
Yes.
like it's you're giving your all, but still not tied to it. So that is a good way of.
Yeah, it's because you really have to be a professional about this, because the difference between amateur and professional is that you sometimes you have to let it go, and it's a good thing, and new stuff will come in. So you kind of empty your slate, then new things will kind of fill in. So if you hold on too tight on your thing, then it will be very hard. It's stressful, and you won't be able to work together as a team.
That's absolutely a skill within itself to be able to put your best work forward, but also not put too much of yourself that it does, hurt when sometimes you get those revisions called, the thing doesn't get approved, stuff like that. But I mean, it is a necessary skill. So super appreciate you guys like giving that advice and stuff like that. Um, for the audience, I did want to say we have a ton of questions, and we would love if you guys could ask more questions. Like, there's so much to talk about, and we'd love to hear from you guys. So please go ahead and drop questions in the Q&A box if you're interested. And this question is from our audience. It's from an anonymous attendee. But they wanted to ask you, in terms of portfolio, how would you recommend a layout for a portfolio? Is it best to show you can do backgrounds and you can do characters, or should you try to have a more narrow focus?
Um, well, it depends on what you're looking for, what you want to do. So, like I said before, it's a talent-driven industry, and also you need to read a description very carefully. If studios are looking for layout artists for a particular show, do research, and then trying to send something that fit in. So you don't want to send a bunch of like a mechanical robot stuff to Walt Disney TV animation. They usually don't do that kind of stuff. So it's just use your common sense. And if you really want to be a character designer, then you have to be, most portfolio pieces should be more about characters. And I also recommend my student at the university that they all want to be a character designers, because it's very high profile, almost like a rock star. But there are only few people in the industry actually consistently doing character design. So I would say the first thing most important thing is you have to get yourself into the system, to the studio. So whichever a job you can find, just get in. Even like a production assistant or any type of work a position that doesn't necessarily artist position, I will recommend always people to get in first. Because once you are in the system, people know you exist and they always can talk to you and figure things out. One of the PA, part of the VisDev department, who used to be a storyboard artist and now he was a PA, but his talent was so great that he was picked up by studio as a storyboard artist a little bit later on. So the opportunity opens up when you actually get into the system. So I would say whatever opportunity you can find, just get in and prepare a portfolio that will fit into what they're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, like you said, to customize your portfolio to the role it would be quite helpful for you and the studio. And in terms of layout, I would say like treat each page as if it's a painting and compose it to make sure the eye flows well. There's a good first read, just treat it like how you would treat a painting. And yeah, that should be quite helpful. Yeah.
Super great advice about like legibility of portfolio and also kind of what to put in portfolios. I did love the metaphor as character designers as the rock stars of the animation industry. Another question we had, this one also from an anonymous attendee. They wanted to ask about thumbnailing. So do you guys thumbnail a lot? They mentioned as a beginning visual development artist, I find that thumbnailing and ideation is the most tedious part of the process. Does this get easier with more experience?
Yeah, it gets easier, but it is also one of the most important stages because you are trying to get out all the things that won't work to, finally find the thing that works. So doing that ideation, getting the thumbnails out is you get a whole map of what's not going to fit into the feeling that you're trying to express. And then that's how you finally find what you want to show. Because usually the first idea is not the best idea. It's like your reaction to the thing. And then you want to get to the response to the brief. So it's quite important, I feel, to thumbnail. And we do that too, even right now. It just gets faster as you build up, um, you stack up your skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Thumbnail is important. And also like, the trying out the ideas that are not typical, something a little bit different. Because people tend to kind of box in. So remember that most movies that made these days are done in computer graphics. So the camera can be anywhere, could be inside your body or hanging way out there in the space somewhere. So just, try to think a little bit different than other people and just try out new ideas. So there's no limit actually. There's any technique you can do. It's a computer graphics can just match it. So just, try out different ideas and just practice more.
Does seem like thumbnailing can be tedious, but it is super valuable. So I guess it's just something, that comes with the time of getting used to it. And I did love what you mentioned about like your first idea might always be your best. That's something that I think I have to remember sometimes too. We do have another question. So this one's from Vienna, and Vienna wanted to ask a question about self-improvement. And Vienna asks, how do you stop comparing yourself to others? They said, I see my friends achieving great things like getting jobs, and even if it's just part-time, I feel like I am behind. Is there any advice? And what do you recommend?
Right. That's tough one because I kind of went through the same thing in my early career. So thing is that, well, you kind of think in terms of you're waiting at your train station, waiting for the next train to come. So like sometimes the train will come on time, sometimes a little bit late. So it's just how it is in this industry. So you're lucky enough, you probably able to find job right away or right product project right away, but it takes time. So don't get discouraged. But like I said before, it takes lifetime to achieve what your goal. So just take your time and one day at a time, and things will happen. Usually that happens in the right time and right place. So I wouldn't don't try to compare yourself to other people. It's more like it's all about you. Is it your talent. So as long as you develop your skill set, the time will come.
Yeah, it's hard to not compare because that's like the natural way we do things. But I feel you can convert that into a healthy comparison also, where you can look at others and say, oh, I also want to be able to do that. I want to get there. And oh, I think I can do this if I do this. And that's, you can take that and make it into a healthy way of approaching things. Um, Instead of like looking at it from fear, you can look at it from excitement. Um, that could be like this first step to then be able to not want to compare.
I absolutely love the train station analogy. I saw someone in the chat also said, love that analogy. And it's true. Sometimes things come at different phases in life, but never be too hard on yourself. We believe in you. Um, so this one is a bit of like a multifaceted question, but this is also from an anonymous attendee. They wanted to ask, what is the difference between production designers, VisDev artists, and concept artists? And then adding on to that, then what are your biggest challenges as a production designer and a VisDev artist so far?
Right. There is quite a bit of difference. Sometimes people confuse about the production design and art director as like a number one guy and number two guy. So that's not the case. The production designers are more about the world building and trying to build the look of the picture. It has to be very unique and fresh, and you have to really have a creative strategy to achieve that unique look. The art director's role is more about interesting design and visual elements, bring those into the picture and make it work. So it's a little bit different specialty, and so it's not two roles are not the same. The visual development artist is more of in a way they're a production designer too, in a much a limited scale. If Jay is working on one particular set, he is a production designer for that particular set. He is making all the decisions and material callouts and what looks best. And then the production designers and visual development artists kind of work together to find better solutions. So it's a different scale and scope, but it's basically that's what visual development artists do. So really talented visual development artists eventually become production designer, and that's really career path. A lot of art directors, they're mostly coming from the lighting and color. So they're very good with the color key and lighting schemes. And also they're very specialized in that particular area. The concept design is a little bit different because they're more of a pre-production kind of thing. You have an idea, overarching idea about, let's say, car design. You want to design something really cool. It may be not functional, doesn't fit into the film production, but you're just throwing ideas out there, concepts. It's not just a blue sky, not necessarily executable. I mean, execute that idea into the film production, but still, that's a cool idea to have. So there's a little bit of difference there, but yeah, at the end of the day, if you're really good artist and designer, you'll be able to kind of tackle all different aspects of different roles. So the bottom line is really strong fundamental skills and good sense of design and color will kind of take you really far in your career.
Yeah, like Jang was saying, the production designer would give a VisDev artist the direction or where I have to take the design or what kind of story I'm supposed to tell. And so, yeah, so a VisDev artist can also be a concept designer where, because in the initial phases, you have to create blue sky ideas and come up with a translation of the script. So that's how a VisDev artist usually is there from the beginning towards till almost the end because you do color keys, keyframes, concept art, and under the guidance of the production designer and art director.
It's so interesting to hear about how the different roles interlace with each other and interact with each other. And just like you said, it is mostly scope and scale, like who focuses on a bigger picture versus who is focusing on this specific set and making this specific set look the way it needs to look. Um, but it is nice also to know that the skills are translatable. You could end up at any one of those positions with the same skills, just depending on what you're going to work with. One of our next questions is from Basil. Basil wanted to ask, what were your guys' early VisDev years like? And then did you have any interesting jobs or memories or experiences that stick out?
I I started out as the storyboard artist and also a toy designer. So but when I was an art center, I my dream was to become a children's book illustrator. So it wasn't quite lined up perfectly, but I really enjoy doing some of the early toy design. I work for Hasbro, My Little Pony, which is a very, you can say kind of cheesy in a way, but it's not not a high end. Some people don't like doing that kind of stuff, but I really enjoy doing that because it's some just very smaller scale, and I know that someday some kids will play with this toy, so that really inspired me. But there's a lot of restriction. Marketing will tell you exactly what color to use, where. So there's some restriction there, but I enjoy those. But yeah, those are my early days. But it kind of step by step, the bigger project rolled into my way, and kind of I was able to move through the my career like that way. But yeah, that was my experience.
Yeah, I'm fairly new as a VisDev artist, and my first VisDev role was on Spider-Verse. So I was basically thrown into the deep end of filmmaking. But it was like I was on it for 4 years, and it was such a good experience because I was, like I said, I was just listening, observing, seeing all these great artists and directors, see what they're up to, try to absorb as much as I could, try to emulate them, try to reach the levels of the artists near me. So that was like an amazing experience, and it propelled me a lot. And yeah, I'm really thankful for that first job. Yeah.
It seems like a lot of first jobs just really stick with you. And I think toy design is incredible. I think it's amazing. So I think another question I wanted to ask was, this one's also from an anonymous attendee. They wanted to ask, how would you recommend someone work on art fundamentals? And then how would you recommend practicing that craft? Would you maybe do like drawing 5 minutes a day, or would you do like a challenge a week? And then how can we use or make art like this to show in a portfolio?
Right. I I think as far as I remember when I was a kid, I was always drawing something. So I think it kind of comes naturally. So I mean, if you're finding yourself forced to draw, then I think you're in the wrong business. So you really have to love what you do, because industry is, I'm not gonna lie, it's very tough. It's going through a lot of ups and downs, and it's a lot of things are out of your control. So if you love what you do, I mean, that's the best thing you can do. And also, I recommend doing something. When I was in art center, my one of my figure drawing teacher, she gave us like doing like hundreds and thousands of figure drawings, small thumbnails, every day. It's like the homework assignment was just so overwhelming. No one can finish them, but somehow we all kind of stayed all night and trying to finish it. I think it's a discipline. It doesn't matter how many drawings you do per day, but constantly you're doing something, practicing and crafting your skill set. That's important, and you really have to love what you do. So I would just say it again, you gotta love what you do. If you find yourself forced to do something, then you shouldn't be in the business.
Yeah, consistency is quite important for anything basically, but especially because when you're drawing and then designing, it's like two separate things. First you need to get used to drawing a lot, and then that becomes a secondary act, and then you have to think about designing. you have to stack these things up. So practicing and being consistent with both of them till they become second nature is, I would say, very helpful. Yeah.
Consistency absolutely is key. And it is really, really important, I guess, to absolutely love what you do if you're going to be drawing that much. I could not imagine staying up all night doing figure drawing thumbnails. Um, Another question we had, and this was from Natalie and Corey, and they both asked, how many portfolio pieces should you have in a specific area? So how many backgrounds, how many character designs, etc., in your portfolio?
I think that depends. For example, for some TV shows, they require to see very rough idea to all the way to finished tight line drawings. For feature, they tend to want to see some more ideas and really your design and fundamental skill sets. Also, it had to be look more cinematic. But in terms of numbers of portfolio, I would just say show your best work. You don't have to show 30, 40 pieces. If you only have like a 10 best pieces on your portfolio, that's good. That's better than showing 30, 40, 50 pieces that are not as good as, your best ones. So I just rather focus on like really editing it out to show your best ones.
Yeah. So for what I did for my grad portfolio was I like wrote a story, a singular story, and then all the elements of that story I like designed out, like the characters from that story, the environments from that story. So I wasn't really thinking about like a set number of characters, set number of environments, just like trying to flesh out this idea and getting that across quickly was my goal. Yeah.
I definitely think that that's great advice. Quality over quantity, I'm guessing, is sort of the main takeaway from this. We really want to show like our best work and put that forward. And if you're not completely happy with it, maybe skip over putting it in the portfolio. We have another question, and this one's a bit of a fun one. It's from Christina. So for you guys, who is your favorite director, animation or live action? And then we'd love to hear about how that director influences your work.
Yeah. Do you want to go first, Jay?
Yeah, I mean the currently I like Denis Villeneuve a lot. Um, Wim Wenders, Denis Villeneuve are like what inspire me. The way Denis like infuses so much story in just a one shot, but it's so clear and so precise, and you get the gist of the scene and emotion immediately. So I try to like incorporate that if as much as I can. Um, and like Wim Wenders, like Paris, Texas is such a the use of colors in that is like astounding. Yeah. So I try to like find what I can from them, but like it always keeps changing. I have like a new director would come up, or I find an old director who will try to inspire me. Like recently, I'm starting to see Satyajit Ray. He's an Indian director, so I had not seen much of his films. So I'm like getting into that and see what I can get from his way of looking at the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a bit of an old school. So I really love Akira Kurosawa, especially early movies he's done with black and white. The one thing about his movie is that the background is very dynamic. There's always like a wind is blowing or smoke or somewhere, or the rain is keep dropping or something going on in the background. So he always does that. And as a composition, it's just, I think it's probably the one of best ever. So I always watch his movies whenever I can. So because so inspiring, and also he really direct every single frame. He never, throw away any frames at all. He just really focused on the craft of it. And it could be very hard to work with someone like that, but at the same time, you learn so much from the person. When I first got a job at Disney, I mean, some of the directors were like they're very picky and really are tough on you. And I wasn't really happy when I was working for that particular person, but at the end of the day, I was learning so much. So I kind of like the directors in that fashion.
You are making me very tempted to watch an Akira Kurosawa movie later tonight. And then I will look at it with new eyes and think about the composition. We are unfortunately heading slightly towards the end of our talk, but we're not completely done yet. I kind of want to ask maybe a last few questions. So this one's from Kat. And Kat wanted to ask, what is your advice from someone who wants to transition from television animation to feature? What's the difference between the two in terms of VisDev?
Yeah, I was both in TV and feature and video game, both mobile games and also more console, more like big scale games. But the bottom line is basically same, like a fundamental skills. But TV, they're more focused. Like their style is in most cases pretty much set, and they have a very tight production schedule. So it's just the mindset is a little bit different because every week you have to turn something over. So TV is more tighter. So you have to get used to it, and the requirements is not. I wouldn't say it's easier, but the TV they really have pinpoint what's required, so you need to hit those points. The feature a little bit open-ended. They're more exploratory and they're trying to figure out things that are more bigger scale and more cinematic. So a little bit difference there, but the fundamental skills are same. But TV is more focused and schedule is much tighter. And you work with most likely outside vendor, not internal studio. So your packet, your design document has to be very clearly labeled. Everything has to be perfectly laid out so you can send it over overseas or different studios. So it's a little bit different mindset, but the fundamentals are same.
Oh, Jay, did you have anything you wanted to add or?
Oh, no, I haven't worked in TV, so I don't think I
Oh,
can
okay.
answer about the transition.
No worries. I mean, that's great advice. I definitely think like knowing the pipelines between the two, knowing the different schedule demands, that can definitely help you understand sort of like what you need to do on your end to adapt your work to fit the medium. And for our very last question, I did want to ask, this one's from Audita. So sorry if I said that incorrectly, Audita. Audita wanted to ask, I've learned a lot that networking is an excellent way to get into the animation industry. Do either of you guys have any tips on expanding your network effectively?
Um, I think the best thing is to get into studio no matter what. So if you're outside looking in, it doesn't really help you. It's like watching Lakers game like 1,000 times. That doesn't mean you can go to uh, the stadium and play basketball. It just you have to get in. You have to play the game. So meaning like you have to get into the studio, look how people work, their schedule, and what each department does and what how they do it, and also talk to people. That's the best way to kind of expand your network. um, but a lot of people they think they just go to conventions or some of these meetings or parties. That kind of works well too, but it's most important thing is get into the studio system and really learn while you're working. It doesn't matter what position you have. Any roles is fine as long as you get into the studio. The doors will open up. It's just amazing how the night and day that it is. Just outside looking in doesn't really work that well. If you want to get in, it really helps you out.
Yeah, and a way to do that is also through like, Instagram DMs and LinkedIn. You just ask questions to the artists that you like and you want to follow or be part of the studio. Just, just build a good relationship with them over these platforms and get better through that. And then that's a easier way to, get into any kind of job in a studio because there is someone who will vouch for you, someone who will be your reference. So yeah, that is important to do.
Yeah, Jay, I totally agree. I think being kind goes such a long way in building any relationship with anyone. And it is so important to get that first foot in the door. But there are steps you can do before that, before your first job, before your first internship, just talking to artists, reaching out, and just generally expressing your interest and letting it be known. There's tons of online artist communities too. So we really, really appreciate the advice. Um, as we're wrapping up and we're heading towards the end of the panel, I did want to say thank you guys so much. Both Jang and Jay, and then also to the audience. Like, thank you guys so much for your amazing questions. Thank you for answering the questions. A huge shout out to you guys for taking the time to share all of your knowledge with us today. And I did see some people in the chat like chatting about like additional questions. And don't worry, if we didn't get to your question today, the recruiting team at Sony Animation has been super on it, and they've been collecting all of the questions that were unanswered. And any questions that are unanswered will probably be used for future recruiter tips on Sony Picture Animation's LinkedIn page. So be sure to follow them there, and you'll probably end up seeing your question get answered soon. And thank you so much, you guys, for attending the panel. We really, really look forward to seeing you guys at some upcoming talks. And I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much again. And we'll see you next panel. Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Yep.
Michelle, for moderating.